This is the Title IV Part A, Subpart 1, Student Support and Academic Enrichment, LEA Random Validation Training for 2023. The random validation will only request documentation for selected requirements in the current year. However, a district must ensure it has documentation on file for all Title IV Part A program requirements. This section will provide a brief overview of the Title IV Part A program purpose and the indicator that will be validated. In this presentation, I will discuss the evaluation of program effectiveness. This presentation is intended solely to provide general information and guidance to Texas ESCs, LEAs, and participating private schools, and reflects the Texas Education Agency's current understanding of statute and applicable federal guidance. The content of this presentation is subject to change as a result of further potential information and guidance provided by federal agencies with regulatory oversight of these programs. This presentation does not constitute legal advice, and entities are therefore advised to seek legal counsel regarding the information and guidance provided before acting on such information. Documenting overall compliance for a program requirement may require several forms of documentation to be maintained locally and available upon request by TEA and/or an auditor. Also remember, to ensure overall compliance with program requirements, LEAs should refer to the program guide and/or other program-related resources that reference the multiple forms of documentation required to be maintained locally. The documentation requested for submission during the random validation process may not include all forms of documentation that are required to be maintained locally. I want to share a reminder regarding the Title IV Part A program's intent and purpose. First, this program is designed to provide all students with access to a well-rounded education. Second, to improve school conditions for a safe and healthy student learning environment. And third, improve technology for the enhancement of academic outcomes and digital literacy of all students. The random validation items are aligned with the Title IV Part A program intent and purpose. The LEA random validation items are aligned to other TEA documents. The Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA statutory requirement, the ESSA program-specific provisions and assurances, the random validation item being selected, and the compliance report program compliance self-check items. Randomly selected LEAs will be notified on October 9th for Title IV Part A validation. Districts supporting documentation to the selected Title IV Part A requirement must be submitted through the TEA Federal Program Compliance Division's Work app within 2 weeks, which is October 23rd. The Title IV Part A random validation timeline is posted. You may see each task and the due date for each of the tasks by LEA, ESC staff, as well as the TEA program staff. The standard meeting documentation that an LEA should maintain locally includes meeting agendas, meeting notes or minutes, and sign-in sheets. Please note that documentation for virtual meetings is an acceptable form of documentation. Participant rosters that include the meeting title, meeting date, and names and roles will be acceptable substitutes for the more traditional sign-in sheets. This eliminates the need of a participant's written signature. Please refer to the table referenced on this slide to determine what is required on meeting documentation and what is considered best practice. The meeting documentation should include the meeting title, campus name, location, date, the time, the stakeholder names, and the roles in which they are representing. Parents may not be district employees in order to fill the parent roles on the committee. LEA Random Validation, Title IV Part A, the evaluation of program effectiveness. Now I will share more specifics regarding this requirement. As stated earlier, the LEA Random Validation items are aligned to TEA documents. Throughout the handbook, the LEA is guided through the alignment with TEA documents and provided requirements for submitting applicable documentation to meet the requirement. The ESA statutory requirement is in Title IV Part A, Section 4106. There it discusses the descriptions requirement. A description of activities and programs that the LEA will carry out must include a description of the program objectives and intended outcomes for the programs and activities in which Title IV funds are used. Also, how the LEA will periodically evaluate the effectiveness of those programs and/or activities based on the objectives and outcomes. This is a summary of the applicable section that is related to the random validation item description. Assurances related to the Title IV Part A evaluation of program effectiveness are also aligned to the ESA statute 4106, which was provided in the previous slide. Again, this is a reminder that the LEA must maintain a description of the activities and programming that the LEA will carry out and include a description of program objectives and intended outcomes, as well as how the LEA will periodically evaluate the effectiveness of these activities. Continuing with the alignment of documents to the random validation selected, the evaluation of program effectiveness is also connected to the Title IV Part A compliance self-check item. On the LEA compliance report, one of the LEA program compliance self-check items states, the LEA periodically evaluates the effectiveness of the Title IV Part A programs and/or activities based on the objectives and outcomes. The LEA will indicate yes or no on the compliance report self-check item. If yes is selected, the LEA must ensure documentation is readily available and kept locally if requested by TEA for auditing purposes. LEAs must include the following selected documentation with the completed submission packet to demonstrate compliance with the specific validation requirement. Relevant pages of the most current district improvement plan, campus improvement plan if campus-based, or other official auditable documentation that provides a description which must include all four of these items: the LEA's Title IV Part A evaluation process, how the LEA will periodically evaluate the effectiveness of the Title IV Part A programs and activities, that are being supported, the Title IV Part A program objectives, and the Title IV Part A intended outcomes of the funded programs and/or activities. LEAs must have all four of these items as part of the description in order to ensure it is meeting the requirement. This slide provides a snapshot of common issues that could result in an improvement needed status for LEAs. A few common mistakes that an LEA should ensure it does not make when submitting documentation are: the audible documentation requested was not submitted, the documentation submitted does not describe the evaluation process. It should be a detailed description of the evaluation process for the LEA. The documentation submitted does not align to the requested evaluation of program effectiveness documentation. And also, the LEA must ensure that it provides the most recent evaluation documentation. If it is not submitted, then you are not meeting the requirement. Thank you for attending this session. If there are questions following this presentation, feel free to reach out to me, Lenitra Guest, the Title IV Part A Program Director. On the slide, you see my personal email address and my desk number. You may also reach out to the ESSA Support Division email address or call the division phone number. Thank you and have a wonderful day.